Good morning, Janice.
Good morning, Anthony.
Today, let's talk about the 3 steps to make sure your DIY or do-it-yourself will works. Because we keep seeing folks, lately it just seems like a lot, who are going the DIY route for their will. And okay, fine, if you're going to do it, we don't really advise it, but if you're going to do it, at least I want to give you a few tips on how to make sure you do it with either the software or the form that will actually work.
Perfect. So today we will discuss using local forms and software, keeping it simple, and hiring a lawyer to supervise the signing.
Very good. So those are the 3 big tips. Before we jump in, when I say to make sure it actually works, I think folks sometimes have the wrong impression of when you know that the will is done. And people sometimes get this understandably satisfied feeling when they sign it and witness it, and then they put it in their safe or file drawer or whatever. And it feels like that's the moment of completion. And I understand that. It does feel like cathartic, like you've done something. But from my perspective, as the probate attorney and executor, that is not when you find out if it worked.
Right.
You find out if it worked, if it was any good, when you die. I mean, and I guess you don't find out, but we find out.
Everybody else, right.
So you won't know if you did a good job or if it was effective until, or your family won't know until you've passed away. And only somebody with some experience and some ability to sort of look around corners and see forward a little bit can tell you, like, yeah, you signed something and it felt good, but that really didn't do anything for you. Right?
Right.
All right. So let's get into the 3 tips of how to, optimize your chances of having a DIY will that actually works. So number 1, use local software or forms. All right. There's a lot of sort of nationwide or .coms out there that seem to be offering a will for anybody, whether you're in California or Mississippi or Baton Rouge or New York. They seem to have a software that purports to work for everyone. But no, states are pretty different. They're not totally different, but there are enough differences from jurisdiction to jurisdiction that if you don't use something that's been carefully tailored for where you live, you might end up getting some unexpected mistakes. So we've seen an example of this with professional software, right? We're not talking about, I guess I'm going to call them out like LegalZoom or Rocket Lawyer. We're talking about software that lawyers pay thousands of dollars to use to make wills for their clients. And even with that professional software, because it was sort of a nationwide company, the New York will had a very, very, very important flaw in one of its affidavits, which would have made probate basically more expensive and more of a headache for your family, right? It would have made something wrong with your witnesses, without getting into details. So if even the professional software has flaws like that, I mean, you can only imagine what the TurboTax, or not the TurboTax, what am I saying? The
Right.
LegalZooms.
The LegalZooms, yeah. So interesting is that Facebook, have you seen them? They always come up with those DIY wills and, get your free will kit package or whatever. I clicked on it because I'm interested, because that's what we do, and I wanted to know what it says. And I went down to the really small print at the bottom, and I mean really small print. I actually had to put it on my computer and zoom in, and it actually says consult with a lawyer regarding the rules governing your particular state or province. Like, it actually says it on there at the but you'd have to, like I said, I had to zoom in to find it. So even they agree, you have to, talk to a professional about the specific state. So I found that interesting.
Wait, I'm not familiar with that. So is this like an ad for somebody that somebody's running on Facebook, or is Facebook as a company offering wills?
It's just an ad from
gotcha.
a random will. Now, of course, since I clicked on that, I'm now in the vortex of every single ad is a do-it-yourself will. But just the one in particular I wanted to see. I was curious. And yeah, the small print at the bottom, very small print.
All right.
Yeah. How many people actually read? But yeah, so even they agree.
Very good. Good job covering yourself, guys.
Right.
All right. So the next tip for if you're going to use DIY software or forms is, all right, fine. If you're going to do it, just do it as simply as possible. Keep it simple. Look, I agree. At some point, with AI and software and forms, we should be able to do some basic legal things just, with that way. But I got to tell you, we're not there yet, right?
Yeah.
So with that in mind, a form or software may work if you keep it really simple without any twists and turns. So for example, if you just want to make a simple will, and I know that's a very subjective term, so I'm going to try to give you some examples here. But if you make a simple will I just want to give everything to my spouse, and if he or she doesn't survive me, then all to my adult kids. That's it. Nothing else. Equally amongst my adult kids. You should be fine. In all likelihood, you'll be okay with a DIY will. The problems start when you start getting into a little customizations. Well, this child should get 45% and this child should get 55%, or I only want my spouse to get this much, but if basically anything beyond the very, very nuclear simple situation, the software might glitch. Let's call it.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
And it might not even be about the software glitching, but rather you might not understand what you're doing.
Right.
Janice, do you you actually understand the difference between per stirpes and by representation?
Well, that's a kind of an unfair question, since I do know the answer,
Okay.
but I don't know that the lay person would. I've had to explain that many times.
Yeah. We're kind of showing off our legalese, but it basically means if you have kids and grandkids, but some of your kids have predeceased you, so you have multi-generations of heirs, how does it get cut up?
Right.
Is it all at one level and then subdivided to the next, or kind of boring? So we won't dive into that.
Right. No, but I mean, there's so many different ways. If you have, let's say, 5 children, it could go, to the family or back to the other kids. And there's lots of different nuances, right?
Yes. And again, the do-it-yourself software and forms, just really not a good solution for that particular problem. All right. And lastly, how to make your DIY will or software actually work? It seems counterintuitive because we're saying DIY, but hire a lawyer to supervise the signing. Okay? So you got local software and you kept it super simple. The next area where most people trip up and have a document that doesn't actually work or do anything is they fail to sign it properly and fail to follow all the formal technical signing requirements of your state or locality. And you'd be surprised, even attorneys who are not specialized in this area,
right.
they mess it up, just straight up. And if you find a lawyer who does wills, like a lot of wills, and is really, really just built out for this, you can probably find somebody who will charge a reasonable fee, not even close to what they would charge to actually do your will, but maybe a couple $100, maybe less, depending on your where you live, to just oversee the signing to make sure you have technically signed correct. And I actually think that's worth it. Just so many technical errors and witness errors and that just undo all the hard work that you've done to get to that point. Do you have an opinion on that, on attorneys supervising the signing only?
No, actually, I think it's a great idea because, like you said, if you don't do the witnesses correctly or the notary or something's off, that in and of itself could create a problem down the road. So at least if you can do that one part, right, that at least takes some of that, the issues out of it.
Totally.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I think that's it. Those are our 3 tips. And yes, we're seeing a lot of DIYers, so hopefully we helped you make it work, basically.
Absolutely. And if you want to learn more, check out Anthony's book, The Solo Ager Estate Plan, available on Amazon.
All right. That's it for today. Thank you, Janice. Thanks, everyone, for listening, and we'll talk next time.
Talk soon.
Bye now.